Good afternoon to you. It is Wednesday, December the 3rd, 12:03 in the afternoon as we record the All 32 podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network, and of course brought to you by the number one daily fantasy sports app in North America, PrizePicks, where it is good to be right. Plenty to get to today, and the first of two bye-week edition pods this week. Flying solo for this one, as you can tell. Want to get into some mailbag stuff from social media, also from where I work, the Boston Sports Journal, where I'm soliciting questions for our mailbag tomorrow. But we'll answer some of those questions here in the pod because not everybody cohabitates both places. Also get into Drake Maye as Tom Brady, ? And, of course, how the Patriots got here. And that was my big task when I went into the locker room on Monday, the only day of availability for the Patriots, as Mike Vrabel has given them the rest of the week off. That doesn't mean everybody scatters to different parts of the country, goes to Tulum or Cabo or wherever. There are some players that will have to stick around to get rehab as they continue to recover from injuries. I'm sure Milton Williams, Will Campbell, Giardi, Wilson, those guys probably staying local as they eye, hopefully, an end of the season return, or maybe in Wilson's case, even sooner. But when I went in the locker room, there wasn't a ton of players available, but I did want to ask, obviously, the coaching staff, the change in culture. Drake Maye, as I said, we'll get into his play. A bunch of different things have happened this year that have helped them become an 11-2 football team. But I just wanted to specifically say, what jumps to your mind when I ask you, how are you this football team? And before I get to that answer, I just want to give you a quick little stat. Pats are the second team in NFL history to win 10 straight games after losing 13 or more games in the previous season. Of course, Patriots did that in consecutive seasons, both in 2024 and in 2023, where they went 4-13 in each of those years. Both of those years led to coaching changes, first from Bill Belichick to Gerard Mayo, and then from Mayo to Mike Vrabel. I know Patriot fans are thanking their lucky stars for that because it has certainly spurred this massive turnaround. The only other team to do that, the 1999 Colts, who won 11 straight games after finishing 3-13. I say 99, yeah, in 98. So when I went in the locker room, I asked players and wrote about this on Boston Sports Journal. But as I said, people don't always cohabitate these things. So let's just give you a little bit of the insight. K'Lavon Chaisson, who's been a stalwart at defensive end for this Patriots team, and while the pass rush has slowed some in recent weeks and certainly has been more visible when they blitz and not necessarily in the four-man pass rush, he's out there. He posts every week, and he causes some havoc. Still someone you can run at, but Chaisson has been a nice addition for this football team on a one-year contract. I said, how? What's happening? And he said, we just believe. We believe in who we are and what we're capable of and what we're good at doing. I don't think we try to outdo ourselves and try to excel in the areas that are not our game. We take pride in who we are and what we do, and we just keep doing those things. And I think that's an important bit of insight. And I think if you go back to the Belichick years, he always used to tell scouts, etc., coaches, don't tell me what he can't do. Tell me what he can do. And then let's figure out a way to highlight that. And then as we're doing this, we'll figure out a way to mask some of these deficiencies. But there were certain players that was their role. You do this, X, you do it well. And I don't care that you can't do Y or Z because I'm not going to ask you to do Y or Z. And I think this coaching staff, particularly as the year has progressed, understands their personnel extremely well, what they're capable of handling in terms of game plan, what they're capable of handling in terms of responsibilities. And this sort of feeds into this belief that Chaisson is talking about. And I say it all the time. And obviously Belichick did it in a different way. It was more fear-based, but players responded to that because they knew that he and the staff would put them in the best position possible to succeed. We're seeing the exact same thing with Mike Vrabel, Josh McDaniels, Zach Core, the whole group of them putting this together and having this sort of success. When I asked Vidarian Lowe, of course, was here for the 2-4-13 seasons, he just said it starts with Coach Vrabel, which I think is obvious to anyone. We practice our identity every single day. And okay, what does that mean? And from an offensive line perspective, he's talking about finishing. He's talking about protecting the ball carrier, which is something the Patriots are obsessed with. Vrabel's been obsessed with. Like, it's not just the ball carrier who loses the football; it's the guys around him because they didn't do a good enough job protecting him. So that's a big part of it. He said, cliche, but the details, the techniques, the fundamentals, they stress these things. But as Lowe said at the end of his answer to me, that's what's gotten us here right now. And we're going to keep on doing it. Why? Because clearly it works. And why would you stray from something? They've set this standard. And as the wins start to pile up, there becomes that proof of concept where you believe that you're going to succeed because we did it before. We did it last week. We did it the week before. And they continue to build on this process. And again, winning 10 straight games is pretty remarkable. And then there's the other aspect of this. And look, there are plenty of locker rooms that will tell you this, and having covered the league for 26 years, 27 years, whatever it is now, and obviously having my 5-year experience at the NFL Network where I covered a bunch of different teams, you'll hear people talk about being close. You'll hear teams talk about being close, and then their actions, whether it's what you observe in the locker room or whether what you see on the football field, will tell you whether that's BS or not. This team has talked about being extremely close since back in the spring because of the sort of team bonding exercises that Vrabel did. We're talking about, getting up in meetings and giving your whys, what do you play for? Where are you from? All these different things so people could understand each other. There's a lot of times in locker rooms where offense guys don't interact with defensive guys. They're on this side, they're on that side. They're in different meetings all the time. Yeah, you have your team meetings, but in general, like, you stick with your groups. There's a lot of intermingling with this group, and I think that was I think that was designed by Vrabel. I think he wants this team to play for one another, and I think you're seeing that. Marcus Jones told me we're so close. It's a brotherhood. We're playing for each other. We believe in one another. We believe in the coaches. I think it shows. Yes, I think it shows as well. As part of this, and I'll give credit to, it was Phil Perry's question, but it was like, this is exceeding expectations, clearly, right? I mean, I told you when we had to pick in late August, I said they're an 8-win team. And I thought that was, I got some flack for it because of the easy schedule, not a nature of it, but I was just like, go from 4 to 8 with a roster that they were stressing behind the scenes, the Patriots. This is just the beginning of the rebuild. We have a ways to go before we have the kind of roster I want. I just thought it made a lot of sense. And I thought that, Drake Maye would take off in the second half of the year, but it would take a little while to learn that, as that has been proven wrong, as everything else has been at this point, as the team sits at 11-2. But, Phil said, do you guys use maybe the doubt from different corners of the media as fuel? And of course, having covered the Belichick Patriots, they were the masters of that. I wrote about this, but, I think it was 2004. Rodney Harrison got mad at reporters. He's like, "No, you guys picked us." And I think we all looked around at each other like, "I thought they were going to win the Super Bowl. Do you think?" "Yeah, I thought they were. I picked them. Yeah, no, I picked them. I picked them." But somehow Belichick managed to convince them that the people on the outside didn't believe on the team on the inside, and that was probably I don't know if it was the best Patriots team, but it was right up there. I mean, that was a team that was a juggernaut. So, obvious to ask the question, is Vrabel doing the same thing, or are players in the locker room talking about that? Chason said, I could lie to you and tell you that's not a thing, but we're not really focused on it. I think doubt definitely pushes people to a higher level, he said, than they actually thought they were capable of. And we're still going to hear the outside noise, but to channel in and only focus on us, that's going to be the biggest thing for sure. Christian Ellis, of course, coming off that monster game on Monday, would just there was actually 3 hits. You see 2, but there was one on the opening kickoff as well where he smoked the returner. He said, I think when you have a chip on your shoulder, it always pushes you. It motivates you. It makes you want to be better to prove those people wrong. But then he did go on to say, this league is a league where you can't take anything for granted. We can, if you wanted to focus on what the media is saying or the fans are saying or different fan bases who don't like the Patriots, etc., you're losing sight of what's in front of you. And that's the game you've got to play. And that's the week of preparation that you have to be at your best. They felt like they weren't at their best 2 weeks ago in that Cincinnati game, and they felt that's a real reason why they struggled. Well, much more energetic, focused practice this past week, and it led to what I thought was a pretty dominant showing against the Giants on Monday night, and certainly helped spur this football team to be in such a great position as they now get a chance to rest up with the latest bye in the National Football League. They're tired, they're beat up, but that performance on Monday night in front of the entire league was a bit of a statement for sure. Before we move on to my Drake Maye question, we're brought to you by PrizePicks, as I mentioned off the top. You and I make decisions every single day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss out on the excitement of the football season where, at PrizePicks, you can win money. Statistical numbers. You look at these things more or less on 2 players up to 6, and you can cash in. PrizePicks is the only app to allow you to stack players, which I absolutely love, because when someone like Drake Maye is on a heater, you ride that heater. You can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. I keep doing it with Maye, passing yards, passing completions, passing touchdowns. You can throw in longest completion, all these different things that you can do more or less on. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS. After you play your first $5 lineup. But again, you don't even have to win that lineup to get the 50 PrizePicks. It is good to be right. And while I'm on the subject, a serious moment, because our other sponsor this week is Ethos, which I've absolutely loved pairing with. When you lose someone close to you, you can't help but think about the future. But I would caution you not even to look at it that way. I would caution you, and this is how I approached it, is sort of as my family grew and my responsibilities grew to the people around me, you want to make sure that they are taken care of in the best way possible should something happen to you. And that is where Ethos comes in. It's an online platform that makes getting life insurance fast and easy to protect your family's future in minutes, not months. It's not a complicated process. And let's face it, nobody wants a complicated process. It's 100% online. So if you don't want to deal with human beings, if you want to do this online and just answer their questions, this is the way to do it. Ethos helps to get it done. No medical exam required. I repeat, no medical exam required. You just answer a few health questions and get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. And you can get same-day coverage without ever leaving the house. Life insurance more affordable than you think with Ethos. You can get a free quote and customize a rate that fits your budget. If you want up to $3 million in coverage, Ethos can help you get that done. If you want to spend as little as $2 a day on your coverage, you can do that too. Incredibly trustworthy. Business Insider named it the number one, Ethos, the number one no medical exam instant life insurance provider. It has a 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot. So protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/all32. That's ethos.com/all32. So you've probably been waiting for it. And I titled it here. You can't read it, but it says it. My notes. Drake Maye as Tom Brady, ? Yes, I know there is only one Tom Brady. I understand that. I am not telling you that Drake Maye at the age of 23 here on December 3rd is that guy. That guy has 7 rings and is the best quarterback of his generation, and you could argue of all time. I'm not old enough to know what Sid Luckman looked like or Sonny Jurgensen. I'm old, but not that old. So I can't tell you that, Otto Graham. But I can tell you of what I saw. He's that guy. You saw it too. Obviously elevated the Patriots. And then in his final years, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But why I came to this thought was the way that Maye played on Monday night. It was the quintessential Tom Brady-like performance. Not a lot of spectacular. There didn't need to be, because he had the answers to the test going into that game, and it was his pre-snap recognition. It was his post-snap recognition, the ability to get the ball out quickly and negate what is a very good pass rush from the Giants with Brian Burns. And even though Abdul Carter didn't play in the first quarter, bullet dodge there, Patriot fans, if he had been a potential pick, had he been there at 4, and can't seem to get himself to meetings on time repeatedly in New York. But I digress. Point being, Maye understood what they were trying to do to him, quickly deciphered it, and made the right read over and over and over again. It was just a few weeks ago he told us he didn't want to be a check down Charlie. In this game, there were times where he had to do that. He threw to the flat, 9 completions in the flat. Trevion Henderson, Ramondre Stevenson, little swing passes and check down type things that didn't generally take up big chunks of yardage, but kept the Patriots ahead of the sticks, kept them moving in a positive direction, avoided hits for Maye, avoided unnecessary scrambling and running around. Clean, decisive football. When we're talking about a quarterback who is in his first full year as a starter, I know he started 11, 12 games last year, whatever it was, didn't finish a couple of those because of injury. And now with a new offensive coordinator and Josh McDaniels and a new coaching staff, that's normally the playbook for a quarterback to show some regression before they show positivity. But since week 1, which was his most uneven performance of the year, he has been flawless, something close to it. There's a reason why we're talking about him as no longer an MVP candidate, but the guy who is currently, I would say, the number one guy, ahead of Matthew Stafford, ahead of Dak Prescott, ahead of some of these other players that are also having fantastic seasons. What he has been able to do in year 2, year 1 with this offense and this coaching staff has been nothing short of remarkable. I think we all believed in the talent. But as I said, I thought this would be something that would happen in the second half of the season. What we're seeing now wasn't supposed to start in week 2 against Miami, but that's when it did. And aside from the 2 turnover game against Pittsburgh, again, just phenomenal play week in and week out. You say, oh, they're going to throw in a stinker as a team. He's going to have a stinker as a quarterback. Well, maybe his stinker is the first 3 drives against Cincinnati 2 weeks ago. And then what happened after that? He pulled himself out of that abyss, out of not looking like the quarterback that we've gotten accustomed to, and then made a handful of wow plays in that game and led them to victory. In this one, as I said, didn't need to make the wow plays. It was just how precise he was. I had him down for 2 bad balls. And when I say bad balls, 2 to Hunter Henry that were just on the wrong hip. And both ended up being, I think one was broken up by a defender and one just kind of clanged off Henry, but it would have been a really difficult catch and it was in tight coverage. But when you throw the ball 31 times, complete 24 of them for 282 yards and 2 touchdowns, and you have just 2 throws that you'd like to have back, I would say that is the kind of stuff that pretty much every team in the National Football League would wish for. And I think if you gave this team some truth serum, like I said, probably ahead of schedule for where they thought he would be. Give you a few more stats before I hit you with a quote from Mike Vrabel that came from after the game. Maye is the only player in the NFL with 200-plus passing yards in each of his team's games this season. It's his 6th game on Monday night with 200-plus passing yards, 2 passing TDs, and a completion percentage of 75% or higher. That joins Tom Brady, who had 8 of those in 2007, and Matt Ryan, who had 6 in 2016, as the only quarterback with 6-plus games in a season. What was the commonality between Brady and Ryan? They both won MVPs in the season I just mentioned. Maye also has a passer rating of 126 this year. Of 126 in the game. That ties Dan Marino, who's in the Hall of Fame, for the longest such streak of games with an 80-plus passer rating in a win, with 10 now. Marino also won the MVP in that season, that being 1984. Mike Vrabel talked to us. He said after the game, I think he's realizing, talking about Drake, what he can be and what the impact that he makes on this offense and being the conductor. He's hard on himself. I think that he challenges himself as well as his coaches. He means a great deal to this football team. Blah, blah, blah. Very appreciative that he's our quarterback. Now, if you've been following the way Vrabel has talked about Maye, he has been less likely to throw glowing commentary like that out in the public. He has pushed him. This is something that if you go back to Mike's time in Tennessee, and I covered those teams quite a bit, and talk to those players, he expects his best players to play great every single week. And even when they think that they've played great, Mike would always find yeah, but what about that series in the third quarter? Like, what the hell was that decision? So constantly like pushing them just a little bit more, letting them know that it's good, but it can be better. You thought it was great, but it can be better. And I think he's acknowledging there clearly how important Maye has been to the football team, how much he has picked up on what Vrabel and the coaching staff have put down. Josh McDaniels obviously deserves a huge amount of credit here as well. And his growth in this offense and his growth as a leader, something that Vrabel pushed back in the spring, constantly talking to him. Every one of those clips you saw from Patriots.com was like, go celebrate with your teammates. What are you doing over here? Go down there. Chat your guys up. I don't stand here. Talk to those guys. They feed off of you. Maye has understood that. He's repeated that to us a number of times. And at first you're like, he's saying what the coach wants him to say. And then as you continue to watch his growth this season and you watch him operate on the sideline between series, going up and down with the offensive linemen, talking to the receivers, having his conversations as he does, debriefing with McDaniels, there's real ownership here. He is settling into this role. He is growing more comfortable in this role. And I think it's all come together here in a way that we could not have possibly expected. Again, not this soon, at least as far as I'm concerned. Let's get to the mailbag, which is as always very interesting. Of course, I have to find what I did with the questions for my mailbag. Hold, please. We'll go to Twitter. This from Boston Guy Sports. Mike, what are the Will Campbell MRI results? Will he come back for the playoffs? Boston Guy Sports here. Excellent question. Albert Breer had a real detailed report on that on Monday night before the game. It's a grade 3 MCL sprain, which is a tear. I don't know why we don't call it a tear. ACL, you don't say it's a sprain, you say it's a tear. This is a tear. Patriots put him on IR. He's not eligible to come back to the last game of the regular season, I believe it is. My math is correct. I saw him in the locker room on Tuesday, with that brace that literally was from his just below his hip all the way down to his ankle. Big old brace on that knee. Clearly part of what they did, I think, is because he's such a tough dude, that they wanted to protect himself from himself and put him on IR. But the other part of this is coming back in 4 weeks, unless he has incredible healing powers, almost seems like it's impossible. That maybe not impossible, but unlikely. I guess we'll know more, probably around the Ravens game, right before Christmas, to see if he's progressing and getting in some work on the football field. But I said it before when it happened that I cautioned people, clearly excitement that he didn't have ACL and was done for the year and then would have to rehab, and, his timetable for next year and when he would return would be a thing that we'd be talking about all spring and into the summer. That's a positive, but just the notion that he'll come back. I don't know that it's totally a guarantee. I mean, again, still way too early, but significant injury and something to watch for sure. And then even if he does come back, is he the same player that he was before? Because as I talked about last week, and wherever I've been, he's the best part about him, aside from his technical soundness, is the athleticism and his way he can move his feet. And if the knee is not 100%, does he have that same sort of quickness that helps him recover from, dare I say, the shorter arms, which hasn't been a massive issue this year. It's shown up, but it's not been like, oh my God, he can't do this thing. But that's just something to keep in mind. At Pat's fan says, considering the performance of the two backup offensive linemen yesterday, would a plan to have Giardi Wilson or Will Campbell focus solely on treatment without returning to the playoffs hold up? No. I mean, I think for them to be the team that they want to be, those are their two starters. That's been the left side of their offensive line. Mike Vrabel rolled the dice, a calculated roll of the dice, starting two guys as rookies on the left side for the first time, or only one other time it had happened since 2000. So clearly they want them back, but they're also going to be mindful that these are two important assets for this football team going forward. Campbell's been better than Wilson, but Wilson has still been a starter for this football team and has shown promise. So they'll rehab. I did make this point. They didn't put Wilson on IR, and they could easily because you can bring up to eight players back off of IR over the course of the season. So they don't have a numbers issue there. It used to be you were only allowed two or three. I forget the exact number. So you had to be sort of judicious with how you used that, which makes the report that it was a high ankle sprain a little bit more questionable to me, because a high ankle sprain is pretty brutal and is probably at best a 4 to 6 week injury as well. So maybe this is not what it was first reported. I have not gotten any more information on that. Saw him in the locker room moving around just fine. I mean, walking, but no limp, no boot, those sorts of things. So maybe the injury wasn't as bad as initially reported, and maybe you'll see him before the end of the season, which would be great to get him back in the lineup and again, sort of build your depth there. While we're on the offensive line, this is a little bit of a look ahead from George Ryan Jr. at Patriots_Harley. If they ever decide to move Will Campbell to another position, is right tackle a possibility instead of left guard? It might be a moot point because he's playing well this year. I would say if he was going to move, that he would likely move inside. But at this point, he has done nothing that makes me say you have to move him off left tackle. I would still argue that for as solid as he's been this year, he probably has a higher ceiling if he were to move inside because of his play demeanor, his play strength, his athletic skills. He has handled things well. He's another one of those guys like Drake Maye, when it's going poorly, has figured out a way to correct mistakes, errors, not get too low, and rebound in a game, which I think is a great trait to have as an offensive lineman. You know, we talk about short memories for cornerbacks and quarterbacks. I think it also applies for left tackles because you face a guy like Myles Garrett. He sacks the quarterback a couple times when you're trying to block him, and you figure out a way to survive the rest of the game and actually, improve your performance as it goes on. So I give that guy a ton of credit. Let's go to Blue Sky here. Brett Bosse, Bosse, frequent. He's a chronic. Are the Patriots' short yardage goal line issues fixable, or something we'll have to work around the rest of the season? Brett, I kind of think now, where we are in December, that they are what they are as a football team, even though, yes, they had a different line combination for the first time. But even with that line combination for the majority of the season, they have not been an efficient and effective running team, especially when it comes to short yardage. This is why they went 1-5 in the red zone on Monday night. This is still an issue for them going forward. Like you say, what could possibly, be this team's Achilles heel? Well, maybe it's kicking field goals instead of scoring touchdowns consistently. You put up a couple more touchdowns in Monday night's game, and we're watching Josh Dobbs, in the late third quarter for the fourth quarter, right? Because the game is out of reach. And they still manage their personnel pretty well on a defensive side in that game. It's almost like they knew they were going to kick their ass, even though they didn't want to tell us that. And you saw plenty of backups get a healthier number of reps in that game against the Giants. But yeah, I just think they are what they are at this point. There's not enough ass kickers on the front line, on the offensive line. Like Bradbury is undersized and has had a terrific season, but like there were times, if you remember the play, it was down, I think it was in the red zone or right on the high red, where Ramondre got tackled for a 5-yard loss, and it was the interior of the offensive line. Bradbury, Onwenu, and Brown all got driven back. Bradbury the most, and like literally as Ramondre's getting the handoff, he's already stopped momentum because there's penetration, and then he ran into Bradbury's back, or basically Bradbury was pushed into him. I don't want to say he ran into him, but Bradbury was pushed into him, and it was like, that's the kind of stuff though that can happen with this football team. They're just not built that way. Will Campbell could be that guy at some point, and maybe even Jared. Jared's he's got size and he's got athleticism, so if he can generate the power that his body says he should, then maybe that left side, or if Wilson ends up being the center next year, maybe that's what it looks like. Here's another look ahead, although not as far. This is more of a, this is a playoff question. This comes from the real Scotty on Blue Sky. What's the toughest Patriots matchup in the AFC playoffs? Okay, so I would not want to go to Denver because Denver is a very difficult place to play, especially when you're talking about a defense that gets after the passer in the manner in which they get after the passer. We lived it in one of Brady's seasons when they lost the AFC Championship game and he got hit something like 20-something times. Part of that was on Brian Stork for his head bob giving away the snap count, but you're going to have to go silent count. That's going to test the whole group. That is a raucous environment, and that is a really good defense. It's not the best defense in the league, though. I think Houston is now the best defense in the league and one of the scariest teams in the AFC. Currently, they are not in the playoffs. You wouldn't have to go there. At this point, they're 7-5. You're 11-2. But that's a team that with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter can ruin offensive game plans and make things difficult. The other thing I would say about the Texans right now is even though C.J. Stroud just came back from the concussion, probably the 3 weeks prior to the injury, he was starting to play like the C.J. Stroud we saw as a rookie. And then I think you saw as the game went on this weekend, getting back to that a little bit as well. Their offensive line's not great. There's a lot of cast-offs, a couple of Patriots cast-offs on that. Trent Brown playing right tackle. Jake Andrews, who was here, and I don't know that he ever really played. He's their starting center. But they have also played better in the last month or so. So, they're a team that would worry me. And then, of course, you have the quarterbacks. If Lamar gets healthy, he's not healthy right now, and it's clear their offense is not the same because he's not as explosive. But if he can find a way to get healthy and you have to see them in the playoffs, that would be difficult. We know Josh Allen's a handful, Superman type player. And there's another team that's currently not in the playoffs as it stands, and that's Kansas City. And until Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes are put to rest, this group, I would still be afraid of them. Not like before, but, they're capable of doing some great things because the quarterback is as good as there is in the league. What do we have? Pretty much at the end here. Pull one off of Boston Sports Journal from Sharat. I mentioned how Josh McDaniels did an incredible job scheming 8 different personnel groupings, tons of motion, boot action. They'd run jumbo, where they brought in the 6th offensive lineman, stack that with tight ends, and then run the other way. Like they just did so many different things to get in, particularly Brian Burns, the edge rusher for the Giants' head. Like, where's the second contact coming from? I know I've got the left tackle, I'm lined up against Moses, but they're going to chip me. They're going to double me. How are they going to play me? And Sherrod asked, have you seen this out of McDaniels in weeks past? And might this actually be a blueprint for how to help the line going forward? And I would say 100% have seen this from him before. Look at, there have been various points where the talent hasn't necessarily matched the record for the Patriots. And I'm talking about McDaniels in his previous times as the offensive coordinator for the Patriots, 2021 with Mac Jones. That wasn't an awesome offensive line. And Mac was obviously a physically limited quarterback, but he finds ways to, as I talked about earlier, highlight and accentuate the strengths of his players and help cover up the deficiencies. This would be exactly how I would expect them to go forward. Although I will say the Buffalo Bills and the Ravens, 2 teams that we've sort of circled on the schedule for a long time, they're 2 next opponents. They actually don't have edge rushers as good as the Giants did. And Abdul Carter, who again, head case, but like very talented and did cause some havoc in the game, and Brian Burns. So, Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, whatever the Ravens are going to throw at you, I would still expect that because I don't think that he is going to ever just say to Vidarian Lowe or Morgan Moses, you're on your own and we're not going to help you, or we're just going to give you the same protection looks so that a defense can figure it out. That's not who he is. That was the previous offense in 2024. That's not this offense. So I would expect you'll see more of that going forward. And even when Will Campbell, if he does come back, and even if Jared Wilson comes back, I do expect that he'll continue to integrate this stuff in there. He's been doing parts of this all season long to make it more complex. Think about the personnel groupings too. I think it was 7 on the first 2 series. Like he just showed the Giants a bunch of different things early, and like, okay, you just became the interim defensive coordinator of this football team. Good luck trying to figure this out. All right, I appreciate all you guys. This actually went longer than I thought. I hope you enjoyed it. For those listening to the show, we ask you to subscribe to the podcast, like, and leave a review. We could use some more reviews. People, 5 stars are wonderful wherever you get your podcasts. Certainly chip in on YouTube with comments. I go through those, and we could use those here if we get some more questions in that regard. Hit the like button, subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel on CLNS, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Patriots content. Callahan and I do pass interference the day after the game. We did that last night. You've got Kyles and Cadlick doing their thing daily, it seems. Doug Kyde has joined us. Bedard, obviously. There's a bunch of people. And if you're into other sports, they've got that as well. Certainly with the Celtics, as they are diehard Celtics people over at CLNS. And please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the next time a show drops. I will probably hit you again on Friday. But again, thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys as always. We are having fun this season. They are 11-2. Oh, and Dan Fitz, how do you say it? From Buffalo Plus, he did ask a question. Why are you the way you are, Giardi? And I would just say, Dan, that I was dropped on my head as a youth, and this formed me. All right, good talk, everybody. We'll see you soon.